Traveling by ferry in the Philippines. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the ins and outs, the rules, the regulations, some of the prices, a couple sites that you might find information and be able to book your travel on. There are large, small, and medium size. There's all different types of seating arrangements and types. So anyway, let's get into it. My girlfriend called me yesterday and said that she would be a little late coming home because she was going to go down to Pier 1 in Cebu City and purchase the tickets for her and her family because they were going to take a ferry trip across to uh, back over to Bohol from Cebu City. And I suggested you don't have to go all the way down there. Go to Ayala Mall, go to a travel agent, buy your ticket there, save you the trip down there because she works close to Ayala Mall. And she did that. She took my advice, me being the knowledgeable traveler that I am. And turns out that the travel agent did not sell tickets for that particular route or that particular ferry line. So she did have to go down to Pier 1 to purchase her tickets. My experience in the Philippines, traveling to quite a number of different islands, is that each area is different. Sometimes there are lots of local travel agents that can sell you tickets. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes you need to go to the pier. I was on Camotes Island many years ago and I tried to buy a ticket one day in advance at the pier and they said, no, you have to come back the day of the ferry to buy it. Now, all of this could have changed by then. In fact, 2020, when the government locked down all travel in the country for a couple of years. We are now here in 2024. We're in recovery mode, and almost all of the routes and schedules that you will find online are not accurate, and that is a challenge. I have had a couple people I know in the last year go down to the piers, and because of information they found online, they were planning on taking a ferry at a particular time, and when they got there, they found out that was obsolete information. They had to wait a couple of hours for the next ferry. So, as far as routes and schedules, it is best to ask the locals, contact the shipping companies that you might, if you know which the shipping company is, that ferry company that you want to use. So oftentimes you don't know, and you almost have to go to the pier or talk to the locals, find out which ferries go to the destination you want to go. Do they have any idea what the time schedules are? I found this map of ferry routes in the Philippines online, and it says 2425. It is not well. It might be accurate for the major routes, but there are many, many, many other piers and ferry ports in the Philippines that go to regional destinations. So this is not complete at all. You can get to almost any island on a some type of ferry or even a motor banca boat. Here's a picture of one such motor banca, and it is used oftentimes between smaller islands. And if you do some island hopping, probably what you're going to use, or something even smaller than that with the outriggers on either side. Ticket class can range different ferry companies have different names, but you've got economy, you've got tourist, you've got business class, you've got tourist with aircon, tourist without aircon, you've got economy or tourist with bunks. Some of these ferries have a lot of bunks. In fact, a lot more bunks than they have seating. And I took this particular Cokaliong to Dumaguete from Cebu City, about 5.5 hours, and most people were laying down. I was wandering around the ship taking videos here a few years ago. Many of your trips from one island to the next island are between 1 to 2 hours, maybe even less than that, depending upon the island. And the seating will vary. You can the larger you can get a cabin. You can get more comfortable seating. You pay a little extra. You can go no air con. I like the open air actually, because then I'm up there taking video and just watching things. Saw a couple dolphins one trip, which was pretty cool, jumping, following swimming alongside of the ferry. Some ferries have snacks and such, and here's very typical. I think this is a fast one of the fast ferries going over to Tagbilaran City on Bohol, and I had my bag pretty tight to get your bag down there. Sometimes you can put your bag up in front of all the seating. They have a space up there you can put your baggage, or as you enter, there's some space to put your baggage. You can check some bags. Some of the ferries are large enough they allow you to check the bags, and that will be stored in one particular place, and then you have to be sure to pick it up before you leave the pier. And looks like this ferry had air conditioning down on the lower level for a little bit. Most of it was open air. These are two RoRo, RORO, roll on, roll off, and they take vehicles as well. And you can see they back in, and you can check online or with the shipping company to find out what that costs. A lot of the prices are with a vehicle and one passenger. Any extra passengers, you have to pay extra for any extra passengers. Oftentimes, you're allowed to stay with your vehicle, sit in your vehicle as the ferry goes about its direction. And here I went up north of Cebu City to Danao. I think this was a ferry going over to Camotes Island, and pretty full. It was not a holiday, but on holidays these things can get full, and you can't find a seat. They won't even sell you a ticket. They are fully booked, so keep that in mind. On holidays, there's a big demand as the Filipinos head back to their provinces to visit family. Travel by ferry generally is very, very inexpensive, so keep that in mind. This is more of a lounge type area, I think. I don't think I had to pay extra to get in there and use the lounge, and then there was a tourist area, I think, which was air conditioned as well, you can pay extra for. I will get to pets on ferries here in a bit, but first, To Go is one of the large ferries. This is at Dumaguete Pier Port area, and you've got the smaller ferry there. All I don't think they have any aircon there, and then the larger To Go. They will run long runs from Manila to Cebu to Iloilo, a number of different places, and you can get cabins. A number of different. They've got more restaurants, that type of thing. Cokaliong is also larger ferries, and I think you can get cabins, different types of cabins there for groups. If you want to travel with family or friends, and they've got a number of different options there as well. They're all relatively inexpensive to travel by. And then you have your fast craft, and you can maybe like 2 hours to Tagbilaran City, Bohol, from Cebu City. Here's another large Transasia. They've got some larger ships, ferries, as well as some older, slower ferries. And then you got Supercat. I think that's the one. The family people I know, they were going out. Another fast ferry. A little different design, interesting design. And here's a roll-on, roll-off. They actually have on the back end, they've got vehicles back there. And then the slower, that's a roll-on, roll-off as well. It looks like they've got a big ramp up front. They can drop down, let vehicles roll on. These slower ferries, for instance, might take, if a fast ferry can get someplace in 2 hours, might take them 4 hours or 6 hours, there again depending upon the distance to travel. Now there are times when the Coast Guard shuts down ferries. Over the years there have been a number in high seas and storms where ferries have had some accidents, and not very often, but it happens. So over a number of years, the Coast Guard has gotten a little more strict about when they shut piers and ports down and don't allow the ferries to go out. But you can go out in pretty choppy weather. They're still going to operate in most weather conditions. What about pets and livestock? And I really can't speak to livestock. I know I have been on smaller banca boats where there's been a pig and chickens and different types of things on them. I don't know if they need to get veterinary clearance for that type of thing or not. I know with the various animal diseases around. I know that certain provinces will not allow animals, pigs or chickens from another province or another country to come in. Anyway, this notice: all passengers traveling with pets, livestock, meat, and meat byproducts. You are advised to secure shipping permits at least 5 days before scheduled trip during office hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday, at the Veterinary Quarantine Service Office. Dogs and cats should be placed in secured carrier-like cages. Now, I was at a pet shop that had a veterinary there a few weeks ago, and there was a guy in there who had the vet give him some kind of certification that his dog, I believe, uh, was didn't have any of the diseases, whatever it is, certification that he's healthy. And they were they told him, well, we don't do that at this office. You're going to have to go to such and such place, because they took the dog in, did the checkup, whatever they were going to do, gave him shot, whatever they had to do. Uh, but then when he picked up his dog, they said, oh, well, we don't handle that certification. You're going to have to go to this other office to get that done, because we don't have the proper forms and paperwork to do that. And he said, well, I'm going to miss my ferry. Isn't there something you can do? And basically the answer was no. We can't do anything about it. We're not qualified, or we don't have the proper paperwork to do it. So check with the ferry company that you're going to be traveling with, as well as any airlines, and what their rules are before several days in advance. Get that done. Now, another option that I had to take, I could not find one particular time, I could not find a ferry schedule that fit my schedule going to Dumaguete, I think. And I took a bus out of Cebu City, took it south about, gosh, what was it, 5 hours, something like that, to a port on the south end of Cebu Island. And the bus gets on the ferry. And stays on takes you across to Dumaguete from the south end. But anyway, we got on the bus in Cebu City, took it down. You get off the bus when it backs on the ferry, and when you get to your destination, you get back on the bus, and it takes you on into town from there. You do have to pay for that short ferry ride, of course, and I forget who collects that. If it's the bus, I think it's somebody on the boat. And for those who are interested, I think there's still from Pier 3 on Cebu going over to Mactan. I believe there is the Top Line Express, I think, still runs every 20, 30 minutes. I don't know if it still runs that often, that you don't have to take a taxi or a bus across over to Mactan Island, back and forth. All open air. I don't think any air conditioning there, but it is an option. And on Mactan Island, I think it drops you off pretty close to the Cebu Yacht Club. Somebody told me there was also a ferry from Cebu City, Mandawi City area, one of those two, going over to further south on Mactan Island. Does anybody know the details about that? Another question I have: several years ago, there was a company called My Boat. It was going to be a taxi that ran up and down the coast from maybe, I don't know, several cities up the coast and several cities south of Cebu City as well, and nothing ever happened to that. And then just a year or so ago, there was another company that was going to do something similar, run up and down the coast as a taxi type thing, and I've never read anything else about it. Did that ever happen? Does anybody know if there's such a taxi boat service out there? And another very important point, be sure you go to the right pier, because there are passenger ferries that leave from a number of different piers. And I generally go to Pier 1 every place that I've had, but there was one time I had to go to Pier 3. And you have different gates going into those areas, so don't get gates confused with the piers as well, because a lot of these ferry companies, if you don't show up maybe 30 minutes before they leave, they're not going to let you on the boat. So don't let that mistake catch you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about transportation, and then I'm going to give you a ride on a little bit of a rough ferry, just give you an idea. And most of my rides have been pretty uneventful, relatively smooth, but anyway, you can get some higher seas out there. Anyway, my bus is a bus company here in Cebu City, and I believe they still pick up and drop off. And I'm not sure if you can get on it on the bus at if they pick up at Park Mall, SM Mall, further south. Does anybody know what their schedule is? Otherwise, you're going to be badgered. You will have people right outside of the terminal in Cebu City, anyway. Taxi drivers, people with signs saying, "Where are you going, sir? Where are you going, sir? We got a van. We got an executive van here. Where are you going?" And they'll quote you a pretty high price, flat rate. Some of the taxi drivers, even outside of the terminal, will try to quote a flat rate. I always find one that will use the meter. It's usually only 150 pesos to get where I want to go. $2 to $3 where I want to get to in the Cebu City area. Van transport. I'm going to Mandawi.
Mandawi, only one person?
No, two.
Okay, direct to Mandawi.
How much?
600.
600?
Yes.
She just charged me 500.
It's okay, no problem. 500.
500? How
Yes.
about 200?
500
Okay,
is price.
taxi is 125.
Taxi.
Yeah. Get a taxi that agrees to a meter. It really is going to depend upon where you're at. Dumaguete, for instance, still does not have taxis there, so your options are jeepneys, tricycles, maybe a hobble, a motorbike taxi, something like that, or you can walk into town from the pier. They've got a number of different piers there. One right in town, and others a few kilometers, mile or two or three outside the city. I think this was on Camotes Island, and you had kids swimming in the area, hoping you throw coins out to them so they can retrieve them and keep them. Anyway, I think this was Camotes Island, and a guy went to meet over there many years ago. He said when he first moved over here, he arrived and there was no transportation before it became a tourist area. And I think a local sheriff or constable finally gave him a ride to where he needed to go. And you could get into some areas where there isn't very much transportation, but most areas, the tourist areas, have really been built up. They're trying to build up a lot more areas because a lot of the popular areas are overcrowded, and they're trying to spread the tourists out a bit. Anyway, this was Camotes when I went there, gosh, maybe 6-7 years ago. And yeah, come out of there like so many places, and there are people there asking for your service. I'm not sure. I'm looking for a friend there. I'm not sure.
You want to race automatic? Santiago B. Santiago B. My friend. Santiago B. My friend. This one.
Huh?
My friend.
How much? The rock cook? The rock?
Yeah.
Yeah. 30? Okay. And last but not least, the seas can get a little rough at times. You know, usually they're pretty good, but seas can get a little rough. They were handing out barf bags on this particular trip from Bacolod over to Iloilo. You can see the ferry in the distance there, and we're bouncing around quite a bit. So a couple of Filipino ladies took advantage of those barf bags, and they were using them, I noticed. I enjoy a little bit of excitement on a trip. You know, I don't want to get out in the middle of a hurricane or typhoon, something like that. But I do enjoy a little bit. You know, a lot of these Filipinos don't swim, so they're especially afraid of water. Don't want anything to any type of problem to happen out there, which I don't blame them. So if you're the type that might get a little queasy, I guess there are different pills that you can take over-the-counter types of things, and even maybe prescription type things. So think about that if you're going to be using a ferry, especially if there might be some rough seas out there. Two other quick notes. If you're taking the smaller banca boats from one island to another, like from the north end of Cebu Island over to Malapascua Island, which this was, those bonka boats can't get all the way into shore. They don't want to, and especially during low tide. And you'll be asked to use a small rowboat, basically, to take you back and forth to the little bit larger bonka boat. And then some of these bonka boats at the smaller piers, you've got a pretty narrow little ramp to walk across, and if the seas are rough, that can get a little tricky. And I did a video about that. If I can find it, I will put a link to that at the end of this video. Anyway, I'm sure I left out a lot of important information, especially those of you who use ferries and bonka boats from different parts of the Philippines. Let us know what your experiences are, costs, issues. Thanks for coming along. Stay safe, safe travels, and I'll see you next time.